Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sayamindu, and I realize that um, while some of you may know me, most probably do not. I'm a free software and free culture enthusiast. I was based out of India for a long time, and now I'm based out of the United States, and so that's why I'm presenting over video to you today. Um, I have been involved in the free and open source localization and internationalization community for a while now. I actually started at around early 2001. I was one of the first volunteers of the Onkur Bangla project. Some of you may remember a very scared looking high school teenager showing up in the uh, first ever Indic computing workshop held at Bangalore. I felt that that community was incredibly welcome, though I was very scared at first. And I found them to be a fun community as well, so I decided to stay on. Uh, and and I worked for quite a few years on Indic computing. Um, Now I have shift gears a bit, and I'm a PhD student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and but I still somehow consider the indie computing community to be my roots, and I still lurk on the various mailing lists and keep in touch with a lot of the people in the community, as well as try to keep myself updated about things that are happening. Uh, so when Anivar got in touch with me mm, about potentially presenting in this panel, my first immediate reaction was, "Oh well, I have been out of this community for a while now. I haven't been actively involved or anything, so I should probably think about things that has already happened and talk about uh, my reflections." So the title of the talk was Indic Computing: Some Reflections. But when I started to work on this presentation, I realized that I still do have a bunch of wish list items and things I would like to see getting done in the world of Indic computing. So I changed the title of this talk, and so this is now Indic Computing, a brain dump instead of Indic Computing, some reflections. So I'm going to talk about all the ideas that I have been having around Indic computing for a while now. And so apologies for the title change. Tip of the hat to Monty Python. Uh, so let's look back a bit. Um, so let's look at what has been happening for the last decade or so. Most of the free and open source indie computing projects started off around the same time. And uh, what did we care about? When we were starting out, there were two major themes that we thought were important. Our motivation kind of focused on two specific areas. So the first one was of expression, of being able to express oneself in their own native language. So we wanted to write in our own language, we wanted to read in our own language, um, we wanted to communicate in general in our own language. I wanted to chat with my friends in Bangla, I wanted to send emails in Bangla. And that was one of the core motivational factors for why a bunch of us got decided to get involved. So I pulled out this email from our mailing list archives. So this is more than 12 years back now. This is this was sent in 2002, and here I'm saying that, look, here's the first ever email completely written in Bangla sent to a public email list. So I was super excited at that time. And this was the prevalent emotion amongst a lot of us around that time. We were super excited. Uh, and, and and this was one of the reasons a lot of us decided to get together to form the Ankur Bangla project, for example. We wanted express ourselves in our language, but we realized that free and open source software, and we wanted to do that using free and open source software, but free and open source software at that time didn't have support for Indic languages, but it was free and open source software, so we had the power to make the changes that were needed to make it support Indic language. So Onkur Bangla was established as an effort to support Bangla in free and open source software. We started off not really knowing what a big task this was, and I think that's a good thing, because a lot of us would have been probably scared of if we really knew. But we did manage to accomplish quite a bit over the last decade. And being able to express oneself in their own language using free and open source software has been one of our greatest success stories, I would claim. And what we were creating as a part of this was we were creating this ecosystem to support Indic content. We were working on fonts to make sure that free and open source software could display content in Bengali or Hindi or Kannada or Malayalam. We were developing input methods that could actually enable someone to write in their own native language. Some of us were working on spell checking engines for Indic languages. So all of this contributed to this ecosystem, which made possible the creation of Indic content. And this has taken and this was also happening on proprietary platforms as well. Some people were making software that enabled them to write or read in their own language using proprietary platforms, and the result of that, like, we have this kind of beginning of this explosion of Indic content online as well as offline. And again, like, this is, I think, one of our greatest success stories. The other thing that a lot of us cared about was access. So we thought that by translating and free and open source software into Indic languages, we would be able to give a chance to the masses to use computing and use the power of computing. We were probably a bit over-optimistic at that stage, but again, we were probably ahead of our times a bit. But now, as I look at the incredible growth of mobile devices in India, I think some of our old ideas around access are becoming relevant again. So moving on from reflections and coming to the future, here's some of the things that I personally feel is important. Again, I have been, this would be a bit of a pontification because I have been out of active duty in the Indic computing world for a while, but these are things that I would really like to see getting done, and this is in some ways my wish list, but I'm not at the grounds level, so I may be completely wrong about some of these things. So take these suggestions with a pinch of salt. So again, like, going back to those two themes of expression and access, we have been pretty successful in being able to create an ecosystem around enabling the expression in Indic content using free and open source software, but I think there are still a lot of rough edges out there. So my dad is a writer, for example, and I've tried to make him use some of the software we have developed and some of the input methods we have developed to write in Bengali. And it has been a pretty frustrating experience for him. And we as technically knowledgeable users can work around a lot of these small problems, but for a normal user of a computer, there are a lot of small but annoying problems that need to be solved. Uh, just as an example, um, control characters for Indic, so zero with non-joiner and zero with joiner, for example, are super unintuitive to a non-technical user, and it's hard to like explain the function of these special control characters to anyone who hasn't dived in deep into the Unicode specs. Uh, Apart from that, we have been for most of the part one of the Indic story, we have been severely restricted by the form factor of the keyboards that we have used. So when you're using a traditional computing device such as a laptop or a desktop, um, you're restricted to the QWERTY layout of the keyboard, and our input methods have been essentially exercising in retrofitting the entire Indic character set into a keyboard designed for a very different script. But with mobile devices, the restriction goes away, and we have the opportunity here to experiment with completely different sorts of layout, even taking creative approaches to the issue of the control characters that I mentioned previously. Um, the other thing that needs to be done, and this doesn't always, we don't necessarily have all the power to make this happen, but we should definitely push for this, is uh, out of the box support for Indic for any computing device that's sold in this country. I think it's terrible that even today, like with everything in place, devices like you have to download extra software to write in your own language, um, in a device that you have brought in your city. Um, but we should be advocating for this to change, um, and even like work with vendors to make sure that this happens. Uh, in terms of related um, um, areas of work in this space, uh, another thing that seems relevant to me is to try and make a corpus uh, of 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 Indic text that's carefully curated and freely usable, so under a permissive license, uh, and this would be super useful even in when we are thinking about mobile input devices, mobile input methods, because if you are thinking about mobile input, being able to have a prediction engine becomes super important. There are other areas as well. For example, it would be nice to have things like optical character recognition system, text-to-speech systems, speech recognition systems for Indic, and for this there's a need, I believe, to like collaborate with academia, because it seems like there has been a lot of research work going on in this space inside academia, but not a lot of that like sees the light of the day, and it just becomes yet another paper. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there if we can somehow bring out some of these research projects and actually go out and deploy those and make them usable by everyone. Um, Again, in terms of access, definitely, I think our original dreams of Indic computing for the masses is starting to happen with mobile devices popping up everywhere. I come back to India every year, so there's like a gap of a year between my visits, and every year I'm completely surprised by the presence of a mobile device in a place and context that is completely unexpected. Um, so I think um, we have a great opportunity shaping up there, and and looking at the ability to translate interfaces for um, open source mobile operating systems, as well as probably semi-open source mobile operating systems like Android makes a lot of sense here. I know that CyanogenMod, for example, is trying to get into India in a big way, and seeing if there are opportunities to collaborate there and work with them makes a lot of sense. In terms of other opportunities out there, we have been involved in outreach a lot already, but I think there's a lot more that can be done. Um, Again, as I pointed out before, uh, it's still somewhat hard for a non-technical user to use Indic with, with their computing device, and some sort of outreach would definitely help there. So, for example, a lot of the mobile devices that are sold in India come with Indic character input support. But even like people owning these devices do not necessarily know that this is possible, that they can like write in their own language, they can chat with someone using their own language, and having a way to reach out to these users and showing them that yes, this is possible makes a lot of sense. But it's not just the users. I think there's a need to reach out to content providers as well. We have such a rich culture and a rich heritage, but a lot of them is still in the old medium of paper books and paper journals and newspapers. Um, there's a need to reach out to content providers and content makers and help them see the possibilities in some ways of this new medium, and actually showing them that this like this is actually like Indic in the new medium is actually possible. So, and again, like these are all new opportunities for us, and I'm excited to see for what happens. I think I'm still somewhat annoyed about the fact that like I don't see a lot of my old favorite Bengali storybooks in Indic in the digital medium. The other interesting opportunity that uh, that's slowly emerging is massively online open courses or MOOCs. It seems like there's a great opportunity for us there to make Indic MOOCs, and not by Indic MOOCs I don't mean necessarily translated versions of popular MOOCs out there, which are, I mean, these would be definitely be useful. Translations are always useful, but we have a lot of amazing teachers within our community, and some of these teachers teach in local languages, and having them conduct these online courses makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, so that's my that's the end of my wish list. um, I'm super excited to see what happens in the next few years, and hopefully I'll be able to jump in and help at some point as well. Thanks everyone for listening patiently, and have a great conference. Thank you.